The British coastline is woven and intertwined with a mosaic of rugged cliffs, hidden coves, sandy beaches and bustling estuaries. Each summer it's home to millions of seabirds and marine wildlife. As we move inland, we encounter a network of rivers, lakes, canals which offer a diverse range of wildlife and opportunities to photograph some colourful and elusive subjects. The British countryside is a patchwork of rolling hills and valleys, supporting ancient woodlands, farmland, moorland and our towns and cities. Exploring this great country in summer offers great opportunities to witness and photograph its fascinating array of wildlife that calls it home. Summer for me as a wildlife photographer is all about early mornings, late evenings. 21st of June is the longest day here in the UK, so there's an abundance of daylight hours to get out and photograph our wildlife. Summer is also probably the busiest time of year for our wildlife, the months of June, July and August, when they're raising their young, so they've got to look after themselves, they've got to raise their young, they've got to feed their young, and those long hours allow them to do that. So it's about early mornings, late evenings. In this video what we're going to do is we're going to explore some tips and techniques for photographing wildlife during the summer months. It's a great time of the year. What we'll do is we'll look at some wildlife subjects that we have, we'll look at their habitat and the locations that you're going to find them in, we'll look at some of the behaviour, and I'll give you some top tips on photography for during the summer months. So let's dive into the beauty of wildlife here in the UK during the summer, and let's go find it and let's photograph it. So what I want to do is I want to concentrate on one or two subjects, and what we'll do is we'll look at things like seabirds, badgers, dragonflies. So let's start off by looking at the month of June. It provides plenty of daylight hours. In fact, 21st of June is the longest day of the year to enjoy watching and photographing wildlife. For me, it's the best time of the year to visit one of the greatest spectacles that we have here on our British coastlines, and that's to visit a seabird colony. And there are many seabird colonies around the UK, and none greater than Bempton Cliffs. There are so many videos out there on it. I hadn't thought about doing one, but there are just so many. But no matter where you are in the UK, you're no more than 70 miles away from the coast. If you're a wildlife photographer, I strongly suggest that, or advise you, to try and visit a seabird colony. The opportunities to get close up to some magnificent birds is fantastic, and what we're going to do now is we're going to look at some of those birds. So the seabirds that we're going to look at are the puffin, the guillemot, the razorbill and the gannet. These birds come here in their absolute millions every year to breed, raise their young and then go back out to sea. The first bird that we're going to look at, the first seabird we're going to look at, is the puffin, probably everybody's favourite, and also known as the clown of the sea due to the coloration of its face. It's probably the most recognisable seabird that we have to photograph, but it's such a beautiful bird to photograph due to its colourful head and its face. Puffins spend the best part of the year out at sea, and as I keep saying, the only reason they come into land is to breed and raise their young, and that's during late spring and early summer. Puffin, beautiful bird. The next seabird we're going to look at is one of our most commonest seabirds, and that's the guillemot. The guillemot is a small penguin looking like bird that's mainly a very dark brown, nearly black colour and white underneath. Talk about black and white in a minute or two. The next seabird that we're going to look at is the gannet. Now the gannet is the largest seabird that we have here in the Northern Hemisphere. It has a wingspan up to around 6 foot, mainly white in colour with a yellow head, beautiful blue eye and black wingtips. They are spectacular birds to photograph when they're actually fishing, and some of the seabird colonies around, you can get boats which will actually go out, feed the gannets, and you can get up close to photograph and film them. But the gannet is a spectacular bird in flight, and some of the seabird colonies you can get really close to them, and it's a great opportunity to practice things like photographing birds in flight. And again, I did a video on how to photograph birds in flight, and I'll leave a link for that below. Next we have the razorbill. It's a medium-sized seabird, black on top and white below, and has a very distinctive bill to it, and that's where it gets its name, the razorbill. It's a very black beak, it's a very black bird, and also, as I said, white underneath, but its bill is much larger than the guillemot. I also did a video on how to photograph seabirds, and again I'll leave a link for that below in the description. Top tip, black and white birds. As we've just seen looking at the seabirds and the ones I looked at, majority of them are black and white. You then take into account that the sea cliffs are often a bright colour, whitish colour. Photographing them can be problematic, or it presents challenges because of the high contrast between the black and the white, and that can lead to either overexposed images, in other words overexposed whites and underexposed blacks. So what can we do about it? First thing you can do is look at underexposing your images slightly so as not to blow out your whites. Next, I would recommend that you shoot in full manual and fine tune your exposure by checking against your histogram. If you're using an automatic mode, when you shoot in automatic, it is going to choose what your exposure settings are, so you have to be very careful when it comes to your highlights and your blacks. In that instance, what you have to do is you have to think about exposure compensation. Now, I did a complete video on exposure compensation, and again I'll leave a link for that below, but you need to be very careful. So pay attention to your highlights to ensure you're not clipping them, and also your shadows to make sure you're not clipping them too. The month of July for me, there is no greater anticipation than sitting in wait on a nice summer's evening, waiting for badgers to come out of their sets, to go about their nightly business, to start feeding and get the opportunity to photograph them. I did a complete series on how to photograph badgers, from finding them to watching them and to photographing them, and again I'll leave a link for that below. They're a fantastic subject. They're the largest land carnivore that we have here in the UK. Top tip, badgers. Photographing badgers in the summer is all about timing. It can be very tempting if you're sitting on the edge of a badger set to start taking photographs of them as soon as they come out of the set. My advice to you would be is to wait. Now, badgers don't have good eyesight, but they more than make up for it with absolutely unbelievable sense of smell and hearing. So you have to be very careful. And if you watch badgers coming out of a set, the first thing they'll do is they'll sniff the air. And what they're doing is they're sniffing for danger. And they'll listen as well. Once they're happy that everything's okay, they will then continue about the business and start foraging and looking for food. So, top tip for badgers, give them time to come out the set and then start photographing them. I don't know if you can hear in the background, there's a tractor. I just stopped filming for a second, and as I turned around to look at the tractor, there was a bright blue flash went straight across the top of the water. Kingfisher. Spectacular birds. What a bird to get near and photograph. Again, I did probably the top video I've done on how to photograph kingfishers, and I'll leave a link for that below. What I want to do now is just take out a few seconds to give you a look forward to the next video that I'm doing in this series this year on wildlife throughout the seasons, and that is Autumn Wildlife Wonders. And what we'll do is I'll look at some of the best wildlife to photograph during the autumn months. And now back to the video. Top tip, heat haze. Heat haze can be a very frustrating challenge for wildlife photographers during the summer months. It's caused by the distortion of heat as it moves through the air, making your subject look quite blurry. So how do we deal with heat haze? Here's my top 3 tips for dealing with heat haze. Firstly, to shoot first thing in the morning and last thing in the evening when the temperatures are a lot cooler. Secondly, look at trying to get as close to your subject as possible. The closer you are to your subject, the less heat haze you're going to encounter in taking your photographs. And finally, shoot in bursts. Yeah, by shooting in bursts is going to give you a better chance to get a sharper image. So, shoot early and late, get as close as you can to your subject, and shooting bursts. That's how to deal with heat haze. The month of August, now the month of August it's normally, summer is at its height. You can get some really harsh lighting conditions and it gets very hot. So for me, I tend to switch my attention to locations like this riverbank, which I know contains some of my favourite subjects, and that's dragonflies and damselflies. And again, I did a video on how to photograph dragonflies and damselflies, and I also did another one on how to photograph dragonflies in flight. If you think birds in flight is difficult, try photographing dragonflies in flight. It is a real challenge. Month of August is a great month for photographing them. So what is the difference between a dragonfly and a damselfly? Well, dragonflies tend to be bigger than damselflies. However, but when a dragonfly is at rest, its wings are spread out much like an aeroplane. Damselflies at rest tend to have their wings parallel to the body. Dragonflies, wings out, damselflies, wings in when they're at rest. So where are we going to find them? Well, this stretch of river here, I know, is home to my favourite damselfly, and that's the banded demoiselle, and we'll look at that in a minute. But dragonflies and damselflies are mainly found around wetland areas, so things like canals, ditches, garden ponds. If you've got a garden pond, check it out. Don't be surprised to find damselflies and dragonflies on it. And you'll also find them along areas like this, along the edge of this riverbank. What we're going to do now is look at my two favourite dragonflies and damselflies. So what I want to do now is I want to look at the banded demoiselle. It's a large damselfly with absolutely spectacular metallic colouring on it. Males have a very much metallic blue body and a broad black band across the outer part of each wing. Very noticeable. Whereas the females are metallic, again it's a spectacular colour, females are a metallic green body with translucent pale green wings. Where are we going to find them? This is an absolutely ideal place to find them, and when they're on the wing here, I've seen hundreds at a time. They're absolutely spectacular looking damselflies and great to photograph. Typically, the banded demoiselle is on the wing from late May through to August and sometimes into September depending on the weather. Banded demoiselle, beautiful looking damselfly. Top tip, neutral density filters. As you can see, it's a bright day today. In the summer, it can be a real challenge to get your exposure right, and that's where neutral density filters come in, especially for film and video, and I'll cover that in a bit of detail as part of my videography series that I'm doing this year. So that's to come. What they actually do is they act kind of like a pair of sunglasses and allow you to get slower shutter speeds, which is very important when you're doing video. Yeah, because you need the slower shutter speeds for video. So when you're using video, then you need a neutral density filter. However, today, although it's bright as I'm filming this at this moment, there's a lot of cloud cover. So 1 second you'll get very bright, and I think the cloud's just going in now as I speak, and you've probably seen the lights changed in this video, right? So that, excuse me, that can be a problem, right? So you need to get the balance right between when you need to use a neutral density filter and when not to. I've chosen today not to because the light changing all the time. The Emperor Dragonfly. As the name suggests, this is one spectacular looking dragonfly. It's one of Europe's heavyweights and one of the largest dragonflies in Europe and the UK. It's approximately 3 inches in length and has a wingspan of up to about 4 inches. Males are a very vibrant sky blue in colour with a very stunning apple green thorax, and they have a distinctive stripe down the middle of their abdomen. Female emperor dragonflies are a duller green with a large blue tinge, and both sexes have very large blue-green eyes. Emperor dragonflies are very powerful flyers, and when they're on the wing and they're hunting, they can reach speeds of up to about 20 miles an hour. So it's very challenging to photograph them in flight, and I did a video on how to photograph dragonflies in flight, and I'll leave a link for that below. If you want to improve your overall birds in flight photography, I guarantee you that you will be successful in photographing birds in flight. Great challenge. Top tip, the rule of 15. Now the rule of 15 is a rule of 15 that I've made up. I use it for myself, and I've come to conclude that if you want to go out and photograph dragonflies and damselflies, if the wind speeds are in excess of 15 miles an hour, it's too difficult for them to feed on the wing. And if the temperature is lower than 15 degrees, then it's too cold for them, and what they'll tend to do is they'll tend to stay at roost. Rule 15. Anything below 15 degrees and anything above 15 miles per hour in wind speed, myself personally, I won't go out and photograph dragonflies and damselflies because it's going to be hard to find them on the wing. Okay, what I want to do now is just leave you with some of my favourite images that I've done of wildlife during the summer months, and I hope that you enjoy them. Thanks for watching this edition of Kevin Hatley Photography and summertime spectaculars of wildlife here in the UK. I hope you've enjoyed it just as much as I say every time I do my videos, how much enjoyment I get out of actually going out, photographing and filming wildlife here in the UK, and then being able to share it with likewise wildlife photographers around the world. All I would ask is, if you've liked it, could you hit the like button? Could I also ask you to subscribe to my channel, Kevin Hatley Photography. It's completely free, doesn't cost anything, and what it does is it just allows me to raise the profile of the channel and reach out to other wildlife photographers, as I said, around the world. So, until the next time, stay safe, take care, and I hope to see you soon. Bye for now.